Thank you.
Yeah.
Daniel Schugurensky here from PAF 509, Public Affairs. I'm very happy to be here and working with Clarkdale on this. I will be very brief, just 30 seconds, saying that there have been 3 projects. There are 8 students working on 3 different projects, but they also did a survey for artists in Clarkdale, and there were about 42 responses. And we'll be happy. They have incorporated some of the answers in their papers, but we will be happy to share with you the main findings also from the survey and all the answers from the survey. And so the students, what they have here is a very brief summary of their papers, the reports. So the reports are relatively long, and the PowerPoint presentation is about 10 minutes, 12 minutes each. So what you see in the presentation is just a summary, doesn't give justice to all the things that you're going to see in the report. So we invite you also to read the report that will be coming soon.
Good afternoon, before starting, it's our turn to open this presentation. Let me introduce our team members. I am Sam Lee. This is Taeyong Kim. As he told people, Soyeon Kim is unfortunately she cannot be here. Sorry about that. Our team is an international team because we focus on international cases. So let's start. Today we'll talk about downtown revitalization. For this, we looked at 9 international cases from Asia, Europe, and US. And from this case, we made 4 principles and recommended 6 actions for Clarkdale. This is a content research review or case study, and we suggest 6 recommendations for Clarkdale. Apart from research review, there are so many studies about downtown revitalization. Unlike big cities, small town revitalization is more difficult. But small town revitalization is still important to keep diversity and strong. Most studies emphasize Main Street approach. It has 4 points: design, economic restructuring, organization, and promotion. Based on this approach, we select 9 examples by 3 viewpoints: population size, and cultural activity, and historical legacy. First is Asia, Korea, and Japan. The first case is Hansan town in Korea. Hansan has about 2,500 people. Hansan created a life skills school, and it attracts many young people from other cities. Its young members came Hansan and used vacant space as new community facilities. Also, they have the traditional wine and sogokju by marketing with rebranding and online sales. This case shows that 2 things: the rebranding and reusing traditional wines and old facility, and engaging Yamapai College students. The second is Gamcheon in Korea as well. Gamcheon has 6,500 people. Government developed art town plan for revitalization. The most important thing is comprehensive cooperation between residents, artists, and local government. Residents involved in public art projects like these pictures. So local council supported promoting festival and providing public space by ordinance. In this case, so that first engaging residents in the art town revitalization project, and second, provide the incentives to participate in local art events. The third one is Nagahama in Japan. Nagahama experienced population decrease as well because of large shopping mall in suburban area. So Kurokabe Incorporation, it is a private public foundation. They purchased all the Kurokabe buildings and the vacant space. So they convert those into Kurokabe squares with shops, experience space, and museums. Also, government and experts gave professional assistance. This case has two things: creating revitalization landmarks that building on local tradition and utilizing government and expertise facilitated. Next is Europe. This is on Heilonai. It is a small town of 2,000 people, but they're selling over 1 million books every year. This revitalization started with second-hand bookstores. Richard Book bought an old castle and fire station and opened second-hand bookstores. So the old mining town become a hot tourist spot. Here are findings unique local resources such as castles and used bookstores were key factors to success. Also, government support financial and tax benefits. The next one is Germany. German case is Essen. Its key points are capitalizing on export and master plan. In these cities, famous architectures lead creating Joperine, like these pictures, a cultural and artistic landmark in an old mine facilities. Also, local government promoting a long-term master plan. Next is Bilbao. 50 years ago, they experienced economic difficulties by steel and shipbuilding industry in decline. There are two public-private partnerships. They play a key roles. Metropole 30 and RIA 2000 connected with the stakeholders and made a plan implemented it. In addition, local government and Guggenheim Foundation cooperated to make the regional landmark. In this case, it shows that Clarkdale considered to build landmarks based on enhancing partnership with made in Clarkdale. And our last three cases are in the United States. The first car is with energy career. The first car, as you all know, that this old mining town is located in northern Arizona, and this the first car has a very unique resources to revitalization. They have the Victorian style homes and the pavers, the Whiskey Road, and also the festivals attract tourists. And the Art Fresca Conference Gallery has a very close relationship with the nearby the cities and the cruises. Also, the visitors can enjoy the various artworks in just one place. The gallery to provide the display the artworks from outside as well as the local artworks. So the first concept shows two things. The first is organize the annual festivals with the wedding Clarkdale and creating a space in downtown where the local and outside the artists can collaborate. And the next case is Bisbee. Also, this regional city, with about 5,000 people, this old mining town also was rebranded as the Old Southwest as the trail brand. Also, the city government implemented the proactive initiatives for tourists. For example, their visitor center provided very user-friendly interfaces on their website. So the tourists or other people can find
the draw information very easily. So this specific case is recommended to actions. The first is revive local history as drawback, and also provide very user-friendly data guides, such as the data maps, and you can see the next presentations. And our last case is Korea, and this Ohio city has three things. The first is that they focus small business owned by the minority for their revitalization program. Also, the city government collaborated with the private company, the recast, and the last one is the city leadership. Their city leadership organized the various stakeholders and then making it the budget program to be the vision and coordination. So our last case emphasized two things: the vision leadership to design and implement the project, and narrowing focus for effective implementations. Now we head to our recommendations. As you can see earlier, our 9 cases provide the rest of the findings. So we organize these findings into 4 principles with A, B, C, and D. Yeah. The first A analyzes the traditional heritages. We think that art, wine, and the trade between the videos. These are the traditional heritage for the Clarkdale. The Hansan, Nagama, the other cases show that the utilization of traditional heritage is very important for the revitalization. Also, the surveys comments can show the same result. They need the themed art events, also better venue, and more art shows. Incorporating 2 things, the cases and the survey, we recommended 2 things. Promote an art festival for painting, jewelry, and pottery. And the next is the launch a new train tour program with the winery and the hands-on art experiences. These 2 things.
Yeah. Wine and painting on the same.
Yeah. And the second is the build public infrastructure as a landmark. The Kurokabe Square and the Bugena Museum, they are also the very unique landmarks for their cities as a landmark, the revitalization. Also, the Clarkdale artist wants that the makerspace, the Couple Museum as a permanent museum, and also outside sculpture. They also want the landmark for the revitalization. So our team recommended 2 more things: convert the existing Couple Museum into art museum and video exhibition halls for the artist, and also establish a digital trading hall is a kind of the platform for selling or the trading art crafts. These 2 on and offline and infrastructures can boost your local economy. And the third is the corporate networking and civic participations. As you can see earlier, the Hansan to the Prescott, all the cities emphasize the civic participation with the broad networkings. Also, the residents or the artists in Clarkdale wants the partnership and the corporate gallery. This means that our recommendation is made in Clarkdale make out of the positive advantages by including the young artists and the residents to build the open platform. This will be a very good result in a long term or the sustainable revitalization project in Clarkdale. This is our final recommendations. The direct with visionary and the effective leadership. Everyone has their own priority to the project. This is one of the key barriers to the perform or the implemented project. As you can see the slide, the Clarkdale 22 or 24 vision, there are lots of things to do. The unique history, vibrant economy, and enhance our infrastructures. There are lots of things to do. But we focus the last one, the bright future for our entire community. We think that this is the most important thing to revitalize a project. successfully. So our recommendation is to share a vision for the revitalization with artists, residents, business, and all communities. This is all of our presentations. We, as the professor said, that our team has all of the Korean government in more than the 10 years central experience. So based on our experiences, we want to make up the practical guide or the practical recommendations. But I am not sure it was on there. But we hope that the 4 principles and the 6 recommendations will be the right guide for the Clarkdale. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, Lisa. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. We are the group in charge of the researching the incubators. My name is Damien Carpenter.
My name is Genesis Holosko. And I am Callan Barkey. We again thank you so much for being here. We're excited to share some of our research and findings with you. First things first, this quick overview of what we have in store for you. We're going to do a quick review of the goals. We're going to share some research about, integrating art into small towns and rural areas. And then we're going to lead into the incubator information and art incubators specifically. We're going to briefly touch on a couple of the survey components, and then we will provide 2 recommendations and then next steps for implementation. You can see our little project mission we came up with there as well. Next here, just a quick overview. We did review, obviously, and constantly referred back to your strategic plan that y'all implemented a while back. And with that being said, we obviously derived our mission from that. We want to aim to assist the town artists with showcasing their work. We want to also evaluate the town for future growth, sustainability, and profits from some of the consistent and already existent tourism that y'all experience.
So incubators originated with tech entrepreneurs and startups, but the fundamental ideas, features, and goals can be used for and have been used for many types of entrepreneurs and craftsmen. Ultimately, incubators are designed to nurture the development of entrepreneurs, helping them survive and grow the startup during the startup period when they are most vulnerable. Common features include facility, workspace, services and training, as well as funding.
Some of the things that we learned from the literature review, I learned that the Clarkdale can increase visibility of local artists and increase tourist revenue by hosting wine and art-focused festivals and by showcasing in their downtown area. I also learned that Clarkdale can establish partnerships in order to promote downtown art. An example of this is a New York City apartment, a New York City restaurant and gallery where the restaurant is hidden behind a painting in the wall of the gallery.
And I looked at a few case studies here before we get more into the incubators about certain rural areas and towns that actually tried to do art implementation projects. They had a bunch of different motives for doing so. The first example that I found was one where town leaders recruited external artists, brought them in, recruited them to host shows, pop-up events, and things of that nature. Unfortunately, it wasn't properly planned. It lacked a lot of the local support. And they learned in the end that after a year, it ended up pushing out all the already existent residents, and they had an entirely new town of demographics and things like that. It didn't work out exactly as they planned. It eventually became overrun with tourists, cough, cough, Sedona. And we obviously realized that that's not something that we want to strive for in our recommendations. The second example here that I found was actually from a really small village in Japan. I do want to acknowledge the international component because I realize the culture might be slightly different, but it's almost identical to Clarkdale, both with the structure, the mining town component, and the population. I think they sit at 41 to 4,200, and I believe you guys are around 44, if I'm not mistaken. With that being said, in this location, they brought in these week-long music and art festivals. Again, similar outcomes. It was an attempt to revitalize the downtown area and produce town profits. This area was really struggling and saw a significant economic decline the year prior, which is why they were motivated to do this. Some of the short-term benefits that they witnessed was obviously tourism spending, visitation, traffic and things of those natures, but it was unfortunately short-lived because temporary visitors just didn't value the history, the community, the buildings and locations that it was being hosted in. Therefore, it left the town really run down, really messy. It cost a lot of money to, clean it up and turn it back over. So learned a lot of good lessons from that example. The last example here was in a rural part of Florida where they wanted to invest significantly in a revitalization art effort. They introduced a program to a local neighborhood, and the prime priority was to produce income. But unfortunately, it put a ton of pressure on the artists to produce such beneficial outcomes that everyone was interested in the beginning, but outcomes were not promising. They were easily turned off. A lot of people quit. It became really dismantled and disorganized. We noted that from this example, with the fiscal pressure, artists participate early on, but they constantly lose interest. It also requires significant marketing, which is a notable component, because artists and tourism will increase, and people will flock to areas with, social media platforms, a lot of those marketing components. So just proper, lessons learned, what not to do, and some setbacks that these areas faced.
So in our paper, you'll find 4 case studies. 3 of them were locally. We have 4 case studies on incubators. 3 of them are from local cities, and the other is from. It was the only rural example I could find, like scholarly research on. It's a county in Pennsylvania. And their population was only 45,000. So I learned a lot from that. I broke the research into kind of 4 areas, and you can find the details in the paper, but you can kind of see the diversity of funding of management and programming that incubators use. Just a couple of key highlights. Mesa was able to use ARPA money for a restaurant incubator because restaurants were negatively impacted during the pandemic, as we all know. And then the rural incubator, they actually used a county grant to fund their original incubator. Other key highlights, you can see they are very expensive, the funding. A lot of times they use economic development funds in their general fund. So that's something that I wanted to note. It does seem to be very expensive, so we'll have to be very creative so you're not operating with these high budgets. As you can see, most of the incubators are in college spaces or college partnerships, and then most of the incubators are managed by either universities or nonprofits. Kind of interesting, the Moonshot partner, they have an incubator in Flagstaff. They have one here, but they have done a couple, they do like Shark Tank kind of shows. They've done Rim County, like I think it was in Payson, and they've done Winslow too. Oh, you do? So they already have incubators, so that could be a good partner for you. And then you can also see in terms of participant fees, you can do fees for the artists, or you can, it kind of depends. Chandler, it's free to the residents, but outsiders are charged a fee. And then that's just a photo of Mesa's 2 incubator spaces. One's at their higher education center, the other, and that was used, they used $1.6 million to purchase that building there in their downtown area, which will be used for a restaurant incubator. And it's going to be managed by Local First Arizona, and they already have 2 other community kitchens in the area.
That leads us into a quick review here of the benefits and risk factors that can come with implementing or looking into doing an art incubator. The benefits significantly outweigh the negatives from our research, so I won't talk too much about those. Happy to read more in the paper if you're interested. We did find a little bit about the statistics. On average, they can produce anywhere between $42,000 to $3.2 million in revenue a year, which is a very broad range, obviously, with a smaller population or lesser of a scale. We would anticipate maybe closer to the lower end, especially during beginning years of implementation. Additionally, the impacts obviously vary depending on the structure, the incubator, and the economy in which it's located. Government revenue is primarily increased through the personal income and sales tax of the area, and it obviously offers a lot of potential to the community, and especially communities that might have limited options for industrial investment, because we kind of realize, smaller towns often are isolated in their nature. On the negatives or risk factor side here, important note there at the bottom, we understand that artists tend to be very self-sufficient. They don't really love reporting to somebody, and often for lack of better terms, it can become a little bit chaotic trying to organize so many different and unique individuals with so many opinions and items of that. So that's a very strong acknowledgement there. We also want to acknowledge on the risk factor side, slightly a bit about the funding. The funding is known to flow very freely in the beginning of an incubator, lots of grants, scholarships, fun stuff up front, but sustaining that over time does become a challenge. So it's really important that you constantly reevaluate your business plan. You always want to make sure that you're setting up for growth even before you have it. So it's hard not to, you know, look too far into the future, but balance the nature of that. Additionally, the two items there, minor concerns to Clarkdale, the mentorship and competition component. Want to slightly touch on those. Competition, we don't think is going to be an issue, obviously, because it would be one of a kind and the only incubator that does it will be located in Clarkdale. So that's not of concern now, but that is a big component should you think of expanding or branching off and maybe involving another partnership or things like that. You know, two heads aren't always better than one. With that, the other component is mentorship. We realize that the local support is there, hence the survey, hence your guys' research and all the heavy lifting you've already done. So because it's not an issue, we don't think, you know, that leadership needs to be challenged. We feel that everyone has clear commitment. You know, we've gotten the feedback and the investment by the town leaders and local artists thus far, which is why we feel this is a strong recommendation.
There are many ways to fund incubators. Some incubators charge a recurring fee from participating startups to cover costs. Incubators also tend to take in a cohort of early stage startups, which creates enough market value that allows the incubator to get a significant return on its investment. Incubators also have numerous revenue streams, selling their services by providing consultations and tilting the market in their favor. Apart from equity, some incubators may demand a percentage of earnings from startups that they incubate, profiting from royalties, from IP commercialism and licensing. As you can see from the survey results, there is a need for a place for artists to showcase their art, as well as usage of empty buildings for community spaces. In fact, 15.7% of respondents cited studio space to create art to the question, as an artist, what are your biggest needs? A respondent directly stated empty buildings need to be occupied, town can look ghosty. There's also a need for food and music being used as an art component. In fact, 43.33% of respondents rated the question, to what extent do you like the idea of art being displayed for sale in local businesses, cafes, restaurants, etc.? A 10 on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being a lot. In addition, a respondent to another question directly stated, what could be better than a venue that showcases artists and cooking with working artists and musicians?
So based on the survey results and kind of looking at all the assets of Clarkdale, one of our recommendations was we pinpointed an ideal location. We think this location is a priority because it's next to the park, where you have the concert series that's drawing between 500 and 1,000 people. We saw that Sucasa's was permanently closed, and we saw that the lot adjacent to Sucasa's, it was a little over a half acre, was available. But we like this because restaurants can accommodate a workspace for entrepreneur artists in the dining area, as well as startup food businesses in the kitchen. We understand that a lot of artists don't like to mix them. We wouldn't plan to use the dining area for people to eat. It would just be a space for them to work and showcase their art and sell it, and kind of like a la carte style, buy the food from the food business entrepreneurs inside, bring it outside to the lot adjacent and eat there. We just think it would be a good blend, and it would help diversify the revenue.
Another quick couple components with that. Just want to note another fun fact. During our research, we found out that about 6% of art incubators only provide, small startups or investments to participants early on. It's actually more notable that most art incubators do require and expect that all the participants and artists that are self-sufficient and make their own revenue to actively participate. If they don't make the cut and participate. So they can be pretty cutthroat and competitive once you get up and running. Also salaries, fun fact for artists. We did find that it obviously a wide range depending on the size, but for the size, location, the best comparison we could make, we do anticipate between $46,000 to $110,000 salaries for the artists once it really gets up and running. So definitely a significant amount of revenue could really help them be self-sufficient in selling their art and be successful. This is just another, slight component with that, as we mentioned with the adjacent lot that's empty, slight pop-up shows, food trucks, things like that could really help expand and invest. Obviously, it would be more free, more flexible because of the food trucks, the small showcasing space. Implementing this recommendation component could encourage visitors to not just pass through, but actually spend money, spend time, and invest in Clarkdale, which is really one of our big focuses. With this partial setup, and these photos come from First Fridays, which is
Phoenix.
larger Phoenix area. So very, very popular, very promising outcomes from it. With that, we lead into part 2 of our recommendations, similar to First Fridays. If we did a pop-up style or art showcase down near the Verde Canyon, the railroad, as research has shown, it sees about 90,000 visitors, give or take. So that's a huge bulk of your already existing tourists, and we would love for them to get off the train and spend money. We noticed that there's a huge parking lot down there, and also acknowledge that there's a small gift shop or some, small building structure that's already there. We did learn though that it is public land, so there's a lot of opportunity. First steps would obviously be to involve that land or evaluate that land and see if it's worth developing, and or similar style to the food truck, empty space idea. We keep it flexible, food trucks, pop-up tents, tables, things of that nature. It would require people to get off the train and ideally leading them, up pretty much the one way in, one way out road into where that art incubator is going to be located, the park, things like that. It will really pique their interest, and of course the advertising components and things will go hand in hand. Other quick notes. Now, obviously, it would probably be free in the beginning, but later on, it is common that people will charge entrance fees and or modest participation fees for artists to, use the space, because the tents could become limited. And of course, you want to ensure that what works best for the artist also works best for you. It is more free and flexible, and with that component, the slight risk to that is people may or may not show up, artists may or may not set up tents. So we would recommend with your advertising, there is some sort of RSVP link, some sort of organization component that does require for people to sign up for their slot, reserve their few hours, what have you, and charge a cancellation fee. If they no-show and they don't cancel, understand that they will be charged for that spot, especially on last second notice. That could again generate more revenue and produce promising effects for Clarkdale.
There are several grants that Clarkdale could apply to in order to establish funding. If you want more information on this, you can refer to the paper or ask me more in-depth questions after the presentation. But I did want to draw your attention to the VIA Art Fund, whose funding ranges from $25,000 to $100,000. It's also important to note that all grants are recurrent and cyclical, so watch out for due dates.
Okay, thank you guys for having us tonight. We are presenting our presentation tonight on lessons learned from listening carefully in Globe. Our recommendations are an advisory commission and virtual map for the town of Clarkdale, Arizona.
By the way, my name is Nelson Wood. This is Aaron Presley. We're students of 509. So we'd like to start off our presentation with a quote from the National Assembly of Arts Agencies that invest in the arts, but the sector develops economic, diverse, educational assets, health and wellness, civic catalysts, and cultural legacies. In a survey conducted by American Arts in 2018, a poll states that 7 out of 10 Americans believe that art unifies their communities, and another part of that survey is 2 in 5 Americans believe have changed an opinion on their participation based on the arts and their community.
And tonight, the way our presentation will go is that Nelson will go ahead and share about the first recommendation. And then after he's done, I will start and share the second recommendation.
So expanding upon some of our previous PowerPoints, through our research, we found that we didn't have to go very far within the country. We found governments within our own backyard in the state of Arizona that are similar in comparison. We have Bisbee and Globe, which, as you all know, were mining towns founded back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and all relatively the same size and population. So with that, our first recommendation, our part of this is we wanted to focus on the difference between the Art Advisory Commission and a working group. And as far as a working group, volunteers it's made up of a much smaller group of individuals that collaborate for the greater good of the entire group. So before the group can enact any rules or whatever, they define the ground rules within that working group and define what is best for the whole group. And that kind of alludes to what Made in Clarkdale is, and what we see within the participants here is a much smaller group that will take this back before council. So with art advisory commissions, that we wanted to, what we found through our research, the pros, benefits are members are appointed by government or some point of representative from the government, and their positions are typically not permanent, and they can come and go as they please. One of the things that we found was that grants can be awarded through opportunities. One of the grants that was provided that Clarkdale can benefit from is the Arizona Commission on the Arts, which has numerous grant opportunities within that program. And yeah, for commissions, and that is in our paper, various programs. Also too, that there was a another thing is this the constant presence of leadership and accountability of an art advisory commission and the networking that is provided with the group. So the bad, this is difficult to find members of any art group. The receiving of bad advice that could tarnish the reputation of the group, or just doing something that doesn't benefit the whole. And then meeting notes are public record, so there's something that you don't want out there for the public. Otherwise, part of the liability of having an art commission responsible for leadership.
No, yeah, we just, and that's the purpose, like the working groups part, I don't think they're great, but just let me know that that's something that you're really hard on as far as like not doing a commission, but we think this is, we'll talk about later in a second, that we think maybe this could be something like a commission in the future. Sorry for the mics, sorry to speak up. Sorry, forgot.
Yeah, I think the mayor was like, no, arts commission.
No, I know, that's why we did want to acknowledge that, and I want to make a special note about that, because we know that is something, but.
I actually didn't say no arts commission. It's just, I think yeah.
Let's keep going, yeah.
Yeah, well,
I think going from a working group and eventually maybe an arts commission might be an outcome. How's that?
Could
Or
you?
your working group that transitions eventually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Stress, man.
All right, well, let him finish and we can.
So, as you can see, that this is what we were able to find on Bisbee and Globe as far as the mining towns and years they were established. Pretty much the median age of Bisbee is 56, and I can't see
It's like 47.
yeah, it's like 47 in Globe, which we also in Clarkdale is like 59. So they're all relatively the same in similarities. So based on the survey that we presented to the city of Clarkdale from the 49 artists or 41 artists, we took question 14 as some of what we were talking about earlier of how a working group versus a possible arts commission. We saw that 19% may be in favor based on outcomes of what may occur as we implement going from working group and possibly transitioning into a arts commission. And then question 9 is, would you be interested in joining a collaborative artist co-op in Clarkdale? So these questions are similar in nature with pretty much the same outcome, same response to the question.
So it was not 19%, 19 respondents.
Not yet, so it was 40, not all of them answered the question, so that's same, 19 people said maybe, 15 people said maybe, 7 said yes, 11 said yes, for both those questions, means there's the interest there for joining some type of working group from at least 40 artists that would answer that survey. And then now on to the recommendation I was in charge of as far as the virtual map. I decided to, again, look at in the surrounding communities for examples first. Carefree came to mind, small town, maybe you might be familiar with it, but it's north of Scottsdale, about 20 to 30 miles. And they have a virtual map, and I thought it was really interesting when I visited their website. I even made a little example for Clarkdale maybe to adopt in the future, but we'll go on ahead. So Carefree, similar population size, similar as far as median age to the other two towns, and also Clarkdale. Started as a Carefree Development Corporation, so not a mining town, but definitely a private venture. So I think there's some brotherhood or sisterhood there you guys might share. And it became a town in 1985. That's on the slide, but because it was almost in threat of being annexed by Scottsdale. So we wanted to keep that small town, you can tell we wanted to keep that small town atmosphere or attitude, or this that small town feeling, so they want to stay where they're at, have their own rules and regulations for a small town. And they have this virtual map where it highlights art galleries, art installations, lodging, restaurants, etc. You click on the options, it focuses in on that subject and has small descriptions for each thing that you put on that. This is an example of an art gallery. This is the one I was looking for. When I found this, I was looking for art examples. I found this one. This is the one I really wanted to show as far as the way that they were able to find or connect with the art galleries or art installations in their town and put them on a virtual map that you can find easily on their website, on their visitor site. It's easy to click on. I think there's even QR codes attached with it and links that you can send out to people and stuff of that nature. And in looking more into it, I wanted to see more about how they came to implement it. So I reached out to Ms. Erica Shoemaker. She's Director of Communications for the town of Carefree. And she's great, amazing. I gotta maybe get her like a Starbucks card or something, because I sent her, I think I called someone, sent her like a small email, and she sent back over 3 paragraphs of information.
Wow,
That I cannot all fit in here. It is in the report, but the main driver for creating the map was that Carefree's revenue is almost entirely derived from sales tax. So it's a way for them to show visitors locations where they can see interesting things in Clarkdale, Carefree, and also have the opportunity to spend money that goes into their their funding, their revenue. So that was the main driver for that. It's a digital platform, so easy to update. You can access it on a smartphone, things of that nature. So saves on printing costs. With the addition of the digital map, they're able to, again, as you saw on the last slide, hone in on galleries within the town and different things. Again, this is a software provided by mapme.com that's easily accessible that she's able to access. And I did look at the price, just in case you're going to ask questions during the presentation, but it's like $20 a month for 20 locations. Just letting that's how much it costs for that. But she was able to implement it herself. And she used the town's budget to pay for that monthly, and she is solely responsible for the updates and maintenance of it. So something that's manageable is for one person to take care of. So, and she's on LinkedIn if you want to reach out to her. So learn that as well. So this is a little bit smaller, and basically the survey asked just the respondents is kind of open-endedly. We only have one to rank ways that the needs of artists. That's on the left. And the right is more about open-ended ways to increase our activities within the town. On the left, it says additional avenues to sell my art in person or online. So that's something that can somewhat tie into something that has the map on there. Maybe if there's like, again, I think we talked about something like a digital online trade platform, one of the groups, maybe the map is there to complement that or something of that nature. Networking, all that kind of stuff. I think studio space to create art. And that's something that can be advertised on the map. Coordinated online presence for all artists is one of the quotes there. You know, art shows, pop-up fronts, and actual art spaces, things that can go into the map. All these things are, all the artists in Clarkdale have a lot of great responses and a lot of things that I can even think of. Like maybe one day on the map, maybe one day on the map, Clarkdale is giving residents the opportunity to have licenses to put stuff on the map, right, privately. So that's something that the commission can maybe work on. And that goes into our summary and possible next steps. Next step for the Town Clarkdale Arts Advisory Commission, maybe start a working group. And then maybe with the virtual map, maybe that's give you the first task of the advisory commission.
Or the working group.
Or the working group. Yes. And look at that map. It's not a lot of space and stuff you can put on there. So I think it'd be really interesting. I think one of the things I do want to mention is that, yeah, there is Google and all those other things that you can use as a map you can implement, but this one is something you can really tailor to the town of Clarkdale and add descriptions and add images and add, you know, sounds, even stuff like that. So that's all.
I'm not sure I have any direct questions because I see out of the 3 presentations all sorts of possibilities. And I think we have a working group, starting with the working group is really come up with the focus that we want to, what we want to focus on to accomplish many of the things that you talked about. Whether it's, I like the ideas of like a pop-up art down at the train. I thought that, you know, that was really cool. Or the art wine train too. Those are opportunities because we know that there are people there. Yes, you know, they spend a pricey amount of money to go on the train, but if it's a special event, that's built into their special event, and people who might have that kind of money will spend on art, possibly, because that's more the focus of what, it's not always a family focused event, even though some families do go on it. Yeah. Finding that space, a maker space, I think is really critical as to help as a way for artists to gather together, to be collaborative, to think outside of their own box where they can, and to find to work on the promotion of their art, maybe through pop-ups to begin with, before we get to as a way to getting to a more specific space, which would be a gallery or a place where it's sold. I was intrigued about the Sukasa and the space, the vacant land next to it. We know there's a restaurant now going into Sukasa, so it might not be a building we can use, but that other space would be a very interesting space, maybe for pop-up to begin and then eventually a building or something like that. So I don't know if I have any specific questions, but yes.
I want to add real quick to that component that you said as well with the spacing. From a lot of our research as well, we learned that 8% own an incubator facility, 12% rent, 24% lease, and almost 56% of the most successful incubators actually develop a partnership with the building and the structure, which is really important as well to consider, because leasing or renting may not be the most prominent selection for y'all.
Yeah, And I think where I started at the beginning was your first presentation talked about utilizing our junior college or our community college. I absolutely, because I think that's got potential because they've got resources to help us from business planning as well as just a space for creating your artwork and meeting together. Those are already existing activities and possibly a facility. So I think we have paths to get to the bigger outcome. I think we just have to decide which path with a working group wants which way we go. And I'd really like to have a couple of my other people here make comments or ask questions.
Spotlight on me.
Of course.
It's hard for me to really come up with exact questions at this point because I'm just, mulling through it all. But of course, the maker space is extremely interesting to me. Having a place, like you were saying, for artists to all get together and not make it seem so much like work, and so that's I think that would help it be sustainable to keep the mood lighthearted kind of type thing. So many things, like you said, that the first year the interest is there, and then it starts to fall off, and I think that's an attitude and a burnout kind of type situation. So.
Yeah, for Marcia.
I really like that since it's so new and we're really tired from putting the show on. The thing that really interests me was the opportunity to do a field trip to lots of different locations that you mentioned and see what's already there. Because today inventing something new when you just so tired. So that was really, that interests me the most. Also, the wine tour on the train, they do special events like for Christmas and Halloween anyway. And so to do an arts and wine event on the train really sounds unique enough to be this super good draw. Some of the events that we've done outdoors with the wine festival, we tried to sell art with that and had absolutely zero success with, and that was, so since I participated in that, it makes me kind of nervous to go down that road again. It always sounds good on paper, but again, everything sounds exhausting to me. Somebody wanted to commission me to make something today. It was like, talk to me on Sunday. I'm not gonna do it. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing what others have done. There's great possibilities here. I'll try to keep my mind more open.
Deb, do you have anything to say?
Well, I like the fact about the nudge to ask outside our group for help. This group can get closed, and the nudge to go outside for expert help and to reach out to other organizations. And one of you used the term an open platform for the main Clarkdale group. What's the definition of an open platform? There's some of these little nuggets I would like more background on. And it's fascinating to have outside eyes look at us. That is fascinating from an artist's point of view. And to dovetail those two strengths, I think is a godsend. I think it's wonderful. We're just not used to it. So I applaud you and thank you for taking us on. So thank you. I'm really touched.
Yeah.
So to dovetail these two strengths, I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your comments. We have about 7 or 8 minutes left for questions. So Susan, take it away with all the questions you have.
Just a few. First, just awesome job, awesome job. What I love most about this process is even if it's not something you said specifically, something you said, like my mind starts racing. And one of them was the comment about the train. And we talk about this all the time. There's 100,000 people a year who drive by, who come from the train, they turn left and go to Cottonwood. This is super frustrating. I really feel like we need
With
a,
binoculars, really.
well, I just think we need like a concrete thing where you have to turn right. I mean, I don't understand why that's.
Easy fix.
Right, but, yeah, exactly.
Put a major pothole on the left turn, they'll all go right.
Good girl, I like that. But it does make me think about we just are in the process of getting what will total about $1.7 million in grants to redo the park that is on that corner, Salamanchini Park. And part of that park is, what is it, SMART? No, what's the?
STEM.
STEAM. It's a STEAM park.
Yeah.
And that's, science, technology, whatever.
Engineering.
Arts, and math. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Anyway. But it just hadn't been put together for me until you all started talking about the train. And how can we incorporate, we already are gonna incorporate public art into that park, it's part of the plan. But how can we maybe incorporate your concepts of pop-up, art events, or even something where we, as part of the construction, do like kiosks that are real easy to throw open. You see those on the coast a lot where artisans come in. So anyway, that was super cool for me. But I also had the question for Mr. Kim about when you talk about open platform, what are you talking about? Like what was your thought? Kind of putting you on the spot.
It's a preference a little bit for the concept in that. As I thought, the made in Clarkdale has the required to some the limitation to enter the made in Clarkdale. The artist the live in the Clarkdale and the take the class or the attend the Alpine college. There are some kind of the requirement to access the platform. So I think that there are a little bit to lose the requirement to the barrier. So enter the residence or the outside artist can enter the wedding craft there with the more nurture the local artists and can give the more chances to collaborate and give their shared ideas. I think that just there make a two-tier membership is the possible alternatives. The local artists can be tier 1 members and the tier 2 is the local artists, the outside artists and the residents. There will be a chance to the creative ideas and share their thoughts to revitalization. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Susan, it reminds me of that website from the other class that they created.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and also the idea of getting, more input into the group and more outside input. So I love that. Group 3, the working group, Nelson, where's Nelson, did you see anyone who had used a working group versus an arts commission, or was pretty much?
No, I think
commissions?
my primary focus is commissions, committees and council, and then piece here to more commissions.
Right, but also you pointing out who had them, we can also contact them and hear kind of the pitfalls and challenges, or maybe the reasons why they did it that way that we're not seeing, so thank you.
I think probably they may have started out as a working group and then transitioned into that.
Right, exactly. And then, Erin, I loved your virtual map. I mean, it just, like, my mind was going crazy of different ways we could use that, and I really liked it. but it also correlated with a recommendation from the last group.
And I'm so sad it wasn't all together.
I
so
know,
that would've been so
I know,
cool.
me too. But I mean, I remember it very clearly, so, but they, one of their recommendations was that we start virtually with the incubator. And, you know, a lot of the things that you all put up there about creating spaces for artists to sell their work, that creating like some platform that is made in Clarkdale or whatever name we're gonna use, where artists right now could start selling their thing under an umbrella of made in Clarkdale. It made me think a lot about, okay, then from there, we start looking at other locations and other things that complement that. So the whole thing just.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, it's kind of coming together.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was gonna ask about, hold on, let me just read my notes really quick. Oh, I know what it was. So don't slap me. I constantly.
Don't use wrong words.
I know, don't use wrong words. Anyway, but I constantly say things that legally aren't possible, so rude is my conscience, my legal conscience. But I was just curious if you saw anything or if you've looked at all about, I'm just thinking about, I think it was is it Seattle that the Pearl District is in? Yeah.
Portland.
Yeah, I went to both on the same trip, so.
Very interchangeable.
Yeah. But I remember so much that they had a program at the time, and it's 20 years ago I was there. But they had a program where they were using zoning and like, okay, you could take a warehouse or whatever and make it a live work space. And so I just wondered if any of you saw that in your research in terms of, okay, we have a lot of artists, could they have a gallery in their house or in their garage that let's hear tell us, Aaron.
Because I think maybe you guys probably found more in zoning and stuff, I imagine, but like I didn't look at zoning, but I did think with that map, like I just had a wild deal I would always share. I never really got to do a lot of research on them. I was like, if people could turn their homes into private galleries.
Take it. And
Especially
even
that
like
made
an
it that
accessory.
That's in
Or
the
an
report.
accessory dwelling
It's in my
unit.
report, it's in my report.
Boost your ADU sport.
Well, I mean, we have our home occupations, but generally they're things that are low impact, low inconvenience to the neighbors, so.
Right.
But I think there are ways you can do it within specific zones that would make sense.
No, I was thinking if it was gonna be done, I think it would almost be like an application process that only the council could approve these people for. It wouldn't just be like willy-nilly, at least to get on Clarkdale's map. That's
But it was your map that made me think of it, like, oh my God, because we know there's artists.
It's
a
not
lot of
impossible.
artists. Okay.
How hard could it be?
Then I'll have.
And I did find an example actually in Virginia, what they did is they modeled it after a garage sale style. So they got away with it because garage sales aren't legally whatever in any way, shape or
Just
form.
open your garage and it's a gallery.
Yes, yes.
Pop up in your house.
And obviously, if I can't remember what the legal laws are, but if you use some percentage of your home, you also get to write it off. So the artists are now making more money and they can sustainably be a full-time artist because of their garage sale art pop-ups or whatever they call them.
So we, right off this, this project, we have two things that are very low cost that we could implement pretty,
They're legal.
and they're legal. It's a bar. Legal-ish.
Erica was very open. Like, I didn't say specifically, like, I think if you were to reach out to her, if you guys wanted to talk and connect.
What city, Carefree?
Erica
Erica
Schumacher.
Yeah. Great. Well, I'm gonna have to cut our Q&A off. I know Susan can ask questions for forever. But I have, I'll run a round of applause for you.